Good evening, everyone. This is your Sir Jasper, and welcome to Virtual English. For today's lesson, we will learn about the 5 types of disciplinary texts college students usually encounter during their undergraduate studies. They are mathematics texts, business texts, social science texts, natural science texts, and literature and the arts. But before we proceed to those aforementioned types, let's first know why it is important to familiarize ourselves with these kinds of texts. The importance in doing this is it will let you adjust your reading strategies in order to help yourself understand the material. In college, you will encounter various types of texts, so if you already know some of their features, then accomplishing collegial tasks will just be a piece of cake. Now, let's begin our discussion with the 5 disciplinary texts with the first type, which is mathematics texts. Mathematics is easily recognizable because of its use of symbols in place of words. Examples of these symbols are symbols for operations like plus sign for addition and X sign for multiplication. It also uses letters with special meanings like X, Y, and Z, which are used to stand for variables or the unknown. Typical also of math texts are notations like 5.6 times 10 raised to the power of 9, numbers like 1, 2, 3, and formulas like E is equal to mc squared. Moreover, some disciplines in math have assigned special meanings to their symbols and expressions. For example, in statistics, the word universe does not mean outer space, but it's the total count of the subjects under study. Another is the linking verb is, which has different meanings based on how it is used. For instance, 3 is the square root of 9. The is in the statement means equals. Another, 10 is less than 15. The is here is actually the common meaning of is. And lastly, 5 is a prime number, which means that 5 is an example of a prime number. The dominant structure of math text is problem solution. The problem is posed as a question, and the solution is the answer to which you arrive at by doing a certain math operation. Also, another common text structure is comparison contrast of 2 units or situations. For example, which is bigger or faster or cheaper? The second is business text. Like mathematics, business has a special vocabulary or jargon. So you have to learn first its jargon so that you can understand the reading text. For example, interest in business doesn't mean your passion towards someone, but it's the percentage of the amount you borrowed. Also, compound nouns have also standard expressions like bulk buying, which means buying at one time of a large quantity of a particular product. Aside from its jargon, you have to also learn some of the conventions or established practices of business writing. For example, business uses a lot of form letters like memos. Seen in the memos contain the standard parts of business communication like date, inside address, salutation, body, and complimentary close. It is also important to remember that business uses polite communication, whatever the purpose it may be it complaint, gratitude, and invitation. There is a careful use of modal expressions like may and adverbs like kindly to keep the customer. An example of a business expression is, please let me know what your thoughts and suggestions are. Here, the word please is used to showcase cordiality to the customer. Common text structures in business communication are problem solution, in which the causes of a problem are explained, followed by the company's proposed solution, and the description, in which the specification of a product or offer given. Another is cause to effect, which presents reasons why a situation is obtained and its corresponding result. The third is social science text. Just like the two types, social sciences has also its own jargon of its specific disciplines. For example, in political science, executive branch means a government branch who is responsible for implementing and enforcing laws written by Congress. In economics, profit means a financial gain, especially the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in buying, operating, or producing something. In sociology, a social class means a division of a society based on social and economic status. And in psychology, depression is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. You have to know these jargons so that you will not be hard up in understanding the material you are reading. Graphs like bar graphs, pie graph, and line graph, as well as tables, are common features of social science readings. Therefore, knowing how to analyze and interpret graphic data is a big advantage. The text structures that are common in social science readings are definition for jargons, recount of a historical event, cause to effect of an economic situation, and comparison and contrast for political matters. The fourth one is natural science text. Technical terms such as pressure, which means the force applied to a unit area of surface, measured in pascals or in dynes, are common in natural sciences. The same is true with symbols, such as CO subscript 2, which represents carbon dioxide, and abbreviations like LB, which pertains to pounds. To help yourself understand many of the technical terms, you have to know some prefixes like uni, which means one, root words like geo, which means earth, and suffixes like ation, which means an action or a process. Diagrams like the plant cell and drawings like the scientific equipment are also characteristics of science texts to further illustrate a certain scientific concept or idea. Another characteristic of science texts are they contain a lot of information. For example, the sentence, each nucleus is packed with information coded in the form of a chemical called deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA and organized into groups called genes which are arranged on thread-like structures, the chromosomes. With this dense sentence, you have to read the statement slowly for comprehension and retention of facts. And lastly is the text under literature and the arts. Like the other disciplines, this text type also has content-specific terms or jargon like tone, which means the speaker's or narrator's attitude towards the subject. Another is the use of connotative language, which means the implicit meaning of a word like snake. In literature, snake is not just an animal. When you call someone snake, he is considered a traitor. And lastly is the figures of speech. Most literary texts contain figures of speech, so you must also familiarize them so that you can understand the material better. An example of a figure of speech is a metaphor, which means a thing regarded as representative or symbolic of something else. He is a snake is actually an example of a metaphor. Also, in literature, the use of language and structure is critical in identifying the writer's style in a text. Thus, it can be said that creativity weighs more than content in literature and the arts. Moreover, texts under this type don't have a one-to-one correspondence, meaning a term can have multiple meanings. For example, the sentence, "We saw her dog," may mean three things. First, it may mean we looked at a dog that belonged to her. It may also mean we looked at her quickly, squat down to avoid something. Or it could be we use a saw to cut her dog. But the key in getting the correct meaning is to identify its context. And lastly, it violates language rules. In poetry, we have what we call poetic license, which lets poets to disregard standard patterns. As an example, we have a line from William Wordsworth, "I wandered lonely as a cloud," which says, 10,000 saw I at a glance. In standard grammar, this is wrong, but in literature, this is accepted. Common text structures under literature and the arts are definition for literary terms, description for literary terms, description for fiction stories, and cause to effect, which may be in the form of recount. So those are the 5 disciplinary texts. Alright, they are mathematics text, business text, social science text, natural science text, and literature and the arts. And that ends our virtual lesson on Flip Classroom. I hope you learned a lot from today's online discussion. If there are any questions, feel free to raise them in class and I would do my best to entertain your queries. So again, this is your Sir Jasper and see you tomorrow and have a great evening.